If your memoir starts with your birth, we need to talk. In this video, I'm going to give you 7 mistakes beginning writers make when writing their memoirs and how to fix them. I obviously read and write a lot of memoirs for work, and these I would say are the most common mistakes that I see beginning writers make. So let's get into them. Mistake number 1 is starting too early in your life. Your aim is to open with a hook. Think about the last movie that you saw. It didn't start at the beginning of the main character's life, now did it? No, it started at a moment that was designed to hook the viewer in, and you need to do the same for your readers. If you're unsure where to start, look for some moment of significant change in your life. The higher the tension, the better it is. This could be an important phone call, a diagnosis, a discovery, an ultimatum, an arrival or departure. Ask yourself what happens on page 1 that is compelling and the reader wants to know about it. There's a concept called immediate res, which is Latin meaning in the middle of things. It's a storytelling technique where a narrative begins not at the natural starting point, but in the middle of the action. Instead of carefully laying out the backstory information, the writer thrusts the reader straight into a moment of tension, conflict, or change, letting the urgency of the scene capture the attention of the readers immediately. The backstory and context are revealed gradually, often through flashbacks, dialogue, or reflection, which creates both momentum and intrigue. This technique not only engages readers from the very beginning, from the very first line, but also mirrors the way sometimes your life often feels, rarely often neat. There's never really a beginning, but instead dropping us into situations already in progress. If you can delete your current opening and your story still sounds logical and still makes sense, you have probably started too early. All right, mistake number 2 is not having a clear theme. Can a real life have a theme? Of course it can. A theme is the deeper meaning or central idea that runs through a story. It's what ties scenes, stories, memories, and reflections together into something larger than a series of events. In memoir writing, theme often emerges from the writer's lived experiences. For example, resilience in the face of hardship, the search for identity, the complexities of family, or the cost of ambition. It's not just what happened, but what the meaning behind it is. Themes often help readers connect with your personal story on a universal level, allowing them to see themselves in your experience and draw lessons or insights that extend beyond your life alone. Without a theme, a memoir risks becoming a diary of events, boring the reader. With one, however, it becomes a story that resonates and endures and can become timeless. Mistake number 3 is summarizing too much. Your job is to stop explaining your life and let us live moments of it. One of the easiest traps to fall into when writing is summarizing your life instead of letting us experience it as a reader. A summary feels safe. It keeps you at a distance, reporting on what happened rather than reliving it. A fight with your father becomes more than "we argued a lot." A line like "his hand slammed against the kitchen table, rattling the glass ashtray, and I felt my throat close as if I were 8 years old again" pulls us into the memory in a way no summary ever could. This is the difference between explanation and immersion. Summaries tell, scenes show. If you find yourself summarizing, pause and ask, can I show here? Can I let the reader hear, see, and feel what I felt? That shift from telling to showing is what transforms a flat retelling into a story that lingers in the reader's bones, and it's something that people will tell their friends about. All right, mistake number 4 is not thinking about the reader. There's a difference between writing to heal and writing to be read. I like to think the first draft belongs to you, the final draft belongs to the reader. When a chapter reads like a venting session, like a settled score, diagnosis handed out, pain narrated without shape, the reader feels trapped in your room rather than invited into your story. Your job is to convert raw feelings into experiences, and experiences especially that have meaning and that resonate with the reader. Watch for language that signals unprocessed rants, universal statements, or strings of adjectives that try to do the work of a single concrete image. If the paragraph makes you feel like you are ranting rather than being truthful, it's probably therapy. Mistake number 5 is giving your reader timeline whiplash. Timeline whiplash happens when a memoir keeps yanking the reader between years without a clear now, or when backstory arrives before the present has earned it. You should use flashbacks sparingly and only when necessary. Your job as a writer is to choose a primary present, moving mostly forward and only loop backwards when it's called for, when the story calls for it. In other words, flashbacks and antidotes should arrive as reveals, not as distractions. When a past event or a secondary character walks on a stage too early before we know why they matter or the purpose, the narrative risk turns into a blur of half-formed storylines and the reader just gets confused. But when a storyline appears just as the reader is asking, wait, how did you get here? Or what made you react that way? That's when possibly a backstory lands with the most power. Of course, clarity doesn't mean simplicity. You don't need to always move forward. It just means to orientate the reader. You should always give your reader markers like trail signs in a forest and a path. For example, that winter in Montreal 5 years before this day, I first learned what it meant to be abandoned. With a single phrase, the reader knows exactly what is happening and when, and they're likely to understand the context of the event. That confidence lets them follow you into complexity and complex situations without fear of getting lost. Mistake number 6 is trying to polish the truth. Nothing breaks trust faster than the sense that the narrator is auditioning for sainthood. Of course, I'm being facetious. Readers don't need you to be admirable. They just need you to be accurate about yourself. A believable memoirist shows not just the blows they took, but the blows they threw, the rules they bent, the moments they were small when they should have been large. Your job isn't to look good in your own story. It's just to be real. Show the cost of your choices as they land, not as some neatly packaged good. If you lied, depict the moment the lie complicated your next day or the truth. If you left, depict the silence that followed and the practical mess someone else cleaned up. No one's perfect, and you should demonstrate where you've fallen down and how you got back up, so the reader understands the size of the change that you later attempt. Mistake number 7, which is legal and ethical blind spots. This is a big one. This is not to scare you off, but the line you're walking in a memoir isn't just aesthetic, it's legal and ethical. Write bravely, but revise as if every sentence might be read aloud in court. Start by distinguishing facts from opinions. A statement that could be proven true or false, for example, he stole the money, lives in defamation territory, and you should be careful. A value judgment without a probable false factual core generally sits closer to protected opinion. The Supreme Court made clear there's no special opinion privilege. What matters is whether your words assess facts. But truth and sourcing are potential shields. Tape this above your desk if you're worried about this. Facts require receipts. Know whose reputation you're dealing with. If you write about a public figure or a public matter, the bar that must be cleared is actually usually higher, and it usually is called actual malice, meaning you knew the statement was false or seriously doubted it and ran with it anyways. Either way, sloppy uncertainty is your enemy. Careful documentation is your friend when you're writing. Keep emails, texts, calendars, and notes so your draft can point to evidence rather than memory alone. Defamation isn't the only hazard. Even true stories can invade privacy if they are unreasonably exposing someone's private life. Malice, or something called false light or intrusion, where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy. Ask whether the detail in your book is necessary to prove prove your book's point or it adds to the theme. If it's mere speculative, cut it out. When a past scene needs a witness to be legal, compose minor roles ethically and say so in the writer's note. Save unflattering specifics for people whose identity and actions are truly central to the story you promised. A memoir earns its place on a shelf not by the size of events it recounts, but by the clarity and courage with which they are told. Writing a memoir is one of the most rewarding yet daunting projects you will take on. It isn't just about stringing together memories, it's about crafting an experience that lets your readers walk beside you, feel what you felt, and see the world through your eyes. Avoiding these 7 mistakes won't make your book perfect, but it'll keep your story clear, compelling, and true to its purpose. At the end of the day, a memoir is just about connecting. Readers don't come to you for a perfect timeline, a flawless voice, or a polished resume of your life. They come for honesty, vulnerability, and the lessons only you can tell. By sidestepping the traps of confusion, over-explaining, or hiding behind summaries, you give them the gift of presence, the chance to live your story than just to read about it. As you return to the page, keep it simple. Ground us in your now. Guide us with intention and trust that the raw, lived details of your experience is enough. When you do that, your memoir won't just be a book, it will be a journey your readers will carry with them long after they've turned the final page. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something from this video, and I'll see you in the next one.